I'm going to take a few minutes of your time to speak to you about the article that I wrote, Defending Animism as the Ideology Best Suited to the Anthropocene Age. Following upon Bruno Latour's famous injunction that we have never been modern, religious studies scholar Graham Harvey has recently added that perhaps we have always been animists. With the massive ecosystem destruction that is underway in the Anthropocene, this realization could represent a necessary paradigm shift to address anthropogenic climate change. The expropriation and destruction, intrinsic to the modern divide between a world of cultural values attributed exclusively to humans and a world of inanimate matter devoid of value, has become untenable. Showing the illusory nature of this divide could open the way for a transvaluation of values, capable of developing an animistic relational ontology. Such an ideological reversal represents what Latour calls a bomb, with the potential to explode the whole implicit dominant philosophy. It is this bomb that I seek to detonate in my article by defending a postmodern machinic animism in which agency is attributed to all of life. Though there are still die-hard modernists who continue to identify animism with the past, such views testify to what we could call environmental Orientalism. Equating animistic cultures with nature, such moderns saw animists as virtually subhuman since they assigned social roles to the non-human world. But in our post-colonial and emancipatory age, the tables have turned, and new materialisms and new animisms are gaining recognition as we do our best to repress and unlearn Cartesian dualities in order to heal our ailing planet. And since we now know that the West has never been modern, and no society has ever been primitive, anthropology can cease to function according to the illusory dichotomies of modernity and accept its new mission, what anthropologist Viveros de Castro calls the theory-practice of the permanent decolonization of thought. If Cartesian dualism has thus become implausible, it's perhaps time we sought to understand animism, both anthropologically, in terms of the dominant way of life of indigenous peoples, and philosophically, in terms of a new conceptual paradigm for the Anthropocene age. This is precisely what my article seeks to do. Section 2 develops the ontological presuppositions of indigenous animist societies, focusing on those of personhood, relationality, location, and ontological boundary crossing. In animism, all living beings are human persons. They all share the same soul, we might say, and what differentiates souls are bodies equipped with different sensory apparatuses. Similarly, all such persons are understood not in terms of intrinsic essences, but rather in terms of relationality and context. Selves always exist somewhere, and the where is constitutive of their being because persons are always dependent upon both context and other persons. Finally, to be a person means to be able to cross ontological boundaries and feel with and as others. This entails the ability to adopt the perspective of non-human subjectivities in order to understand how they conceive of themselves as the center of their own worlds. This ability, which is essential for empathy and is wired into many mammals via mirror neurons, allows a person to feel as and think as another. The concluding section of my article uses philosopher and psychoanalyst Félix Guattari's concept of machinic animism to show how animism could look in the 21st century. Because indigenous peoples never objectified the non-human world, preferring to attribute subjectivity universally to all entities in order to develop reciprocal and interdependent relations, Guattari asks us to pass through animist thought in order to develop a politics of nature in which subjectivation, and thus the political, inheres in all matter. According to Guattari, attributing spirit to all beings, like a Mexican curandero or a borroro, could help us to develop the solidarity that is so sorely lacking in our world today. As the natural sciences seek to prove animist presuppositions scientifically, and moderns come to realize that sentience, consciousness, and culture are intrinsic to all of life, perhaps an animist ontology will become the new normal and allow us to understand the kinship relations of all of life before it is too late.